Tuesday, everybody. Today is Quick Tip Tuesday, and our theme this week is giving you tips for effective lesson planning. So I'm going to give you 7 really amazing tips that you can use in your classroom for lesson planning and creating awesome, engaging plans for your students. All right, tip number 1. This tip is find a format that fits your lifestyle or the way that you teach best. There are so many different kinds of formats of lesson plans. You can buy one of those big giant lesson planning books. You can get books that are tailored to your needs. You can use digital lesson plans. There are actually software programs out there like Common Curriculum that you can use to format your lesson plans. You can use Google Sheets. You can use all kinds of things, but just find something that fits your lifestyle and the way that you would like to complete your lesson plans. For me, I always had digital lesson plans and I created my own template. I can go ahead and put a free copy of that template below. Just click below and you can download your own template. All right, tip number 2 is going to be lesson plan with your team. This is especially helpful if you teach elementary where there's more than one teacher that's teaching the same subject. This is going to be helpful because you really want to share all the resources and use what each other has. So lesson plan with your team. You don't all have to do the exact same thing, although you should be teaching the same content. The way that you teach it should be up to you. However, if your fellow teacher, your team teacher, has a really amazing strategy that they use or some kind of resource, then by all means, use what they have and share your stuff as well. It's going to make your life so much easier. Tip number 3 is going to be know your objectives. And it's really important that you tell your students the objectives and also write them on the board. I know as a teacher, I used to think that this was kind of dumb. But let me tell you a story. We had a teacher last year who was just she was new and she was learning how to teach. And you know how your first year teaching can be a little bit difficult. And she had a mentor and everything, and we were working with her. But, oh, and she's a high school teacher, so if that helps. But her lessons were a little bit confusing and the kids kind of never knew what it was they were supposed to be learning. And I had a student come into my office and tell me, Mrs. Rogers, every other teacher that I have puts the objective on the board. And I always thought it was stupid. But it's really frustrating to me when I go into this teacher's classroom and there's no objective because I have no idea what it is I'm supposed to be learning. And right there I was like, mind blown, because they do look at that. Your students do look at that, especially your older ones. So make sure you know your objectives and you write those down, and that the resources and the lessons that you pull are teaching to those objectives. Lesson planning tip number 4 is going to be know the elements of effective instruction, because you really want to plan all of those elements into your lessons. It's really important that you have an anticipatory set, which is, it's your hook. It's how you get your students ready and thinking about the topic that you're going to be teaching. And it's important that you have a closure, because closure is really important in your lesson. So have those planned out. Have them written down in your lesson plans so that you don't forget to do them. Because let me tell you, students remember the first thing they learn and the last thing they learn. Those are the 2 things that they will remember. Everything in between is basically, how engaging your lesson is, but they will remember the beginning and they'll remember the end. So make sure that you are putting those elements into your lesson plans. So tip number 5 for effective lesson planning is going to be to set aside a specific amount of time for you to lesson plan. Don't spend too much time. I know that it can be very time consuming, but don't do that to yourself. Do what you can do in the amount of time that you give yourself. For example, what I used to do is I used to take a little bit of lesson planning and do it every single day. So like Monday, I didn't do it on my plan period because that was just, I didn't have enough time to do that. But I always did it after school. So after school, I would take the time to set about 30 minutes to plan at least one lesson and prepare materials and do all of those things for the week ahead. So there's some other strategies that you can use to save some time, You can do batch planning where you just plan like a whole month or maybe a whole quarter and you do that in one day. That's a good way to do it. But however you do it, make sure that you're creating a specific time. Use a calendar, do whatever it is you need to do to keep yourself on track. Lesson planning tip number 6 is going to be know your students, specifically their learning styles and also the ability levels in your class. So first of all, learning styles. It's important at the beginning of the year that you create some kind of teacher inventory where you learn how students like to learn the best. And if you have older students, they know how they learn best. They can tell you right away, oh, I need to see it, or I need to do it. So make sure that you know your students' learning styles and you try to tailor your plans to their specific styles. And maybe it can just be like tailor it to what the majority is. Or if you have 2 kinds of learning styles in your class, try to incorporate both of those. I always try to incorporate, well, pretty much everything that I possibly can, because, you know, students, what I know is that it's easier for students to remember everything if they are seeing, writing, speaking, hearing, and teaching each other the content. So I try to incorporate all of those, but make sure you know your students and what they are going to learn best by. Also, make sure you know the ability levels of the students in your class. For example, if you have a classroom full of high achievers or maybe even gifted students, you're definitely going to want to tailor your plans to those students. On the flip side, if you have students that are on the lower level that need a little bit more intervention, you're going to want to tailor your plans there. You might have just all kinds of mixed abilities. Well, you're definitely going to want to plan out some intervention strategies and also some enrichment strategies that are going to help you reach those students on, both ends of the spectrum. Last tip for today for lesson planning is going to be to incorporate engaging strategies into your plans. Remember, teachers, nobody learns by sitting there and getting lectured. Always incorporate strategies that are going to get students actively participating in the lesson. So some things that you could do to incorporate are use some Kagan strategies, cooperative learning. Those are always great and they're engaging. Do some group projects, have students partner up and do a think, pair, share, or teach each other. Make sure they're writing, taking notes. If you have graphic organizers or even close notes, something like that, those will be helpful and engaging. So make sure you're planning something for students to do while you are modeling the lesson. Don't just have them sit there and listen to you because they're not going to remember everything. If you have them doing something and actively participating in the lesson, they're going to remember a lot more. Also, incorporate some technology into your lesson plans. That's very engaging and students learn a lot when they're using technology. So teachers, I gave you 7 really great tips to help you lesson plan easier. I promise if you follow these tips, you are going to do so much better. I am going to link below a free lesson planning template, and also I have a link for some lesson planning books that you can purchase on Amazon because they have a whole bunch of different kinds. So go ahead and subscribe and follow me for more information on teaching and engagement strategies. I hope you enjoyed this 7 tips for lesson planning. Have a great day.